My name is Jordan and I'm 35 years old. If you happen to see me walking down the street, you'd probably assume I have everything in order. A well-dressed, focused guy who seems comfortable in his own skin. On the surface, it looks that way. I work as a project manager for a mid-sized marketing firm, the kind of job that doesn't make headlines but is solid enough to demand my full attention. It's a role where I'm responsible for making things happen, for keeping projects on track and ensuring that we deliver. But in reality, it's more than just a job. It's an all-consuming force that seems to drain me to my core. The pressure has built up over the years, and it's taken a toll. Each day blends into the next, a steady cycle of meetings, emails, and constant deadlines. Weekends? They hardly exist anymore. On Saturdays and Sundays, my phone still rings with work calls, and urgent emails still need answers. Clients need hand-holding, colleagues require guidance, and there's always some last-minute issue threatening to undo everything. It's like I've become this machine, always in go mode, always on edge, with no time left for myself. I haven't had a real hobby in years. I tried a gym routine a few months back, but eventually, I was just too tired to keep going. I bought a few books, convinced that I'd get back into reading, but they sit on the shelf, collecting dust. Once I even picked up a guitar thinking that maybe learning an instrument would be a good distraction. That lasted a week before I stashed it in my closet, realizing I didn't have the energy to put into anything new. My job drains everything out of me, leaving no room for anything else. So, when I need a release, when the weight of my routine feels unbearable, I do something different. About once or twice a month, I go out. I don't just mean going out to a restaurant or having a drink with a few friends. No, I go clubbing, somewhere loud, anonymous, where I can disappear into the crowd. There's something about being out there, under flashing lights and blaring music, that helps me forget everything. My job, my responsibilities, my stress. Just for those few hours, I feel free. On one of those Friday nights, I decided it was time to blow off some steam again. I threw on a fitted black shirt and dark jeans, opting for a simple look that still felt sharp. It was late by the time I stepped out, with a light chill in the air as I walked toward a club on the edge of downtown that I hadn't been to before. I liked switching things up, trying out different places to keep the nights from feeling too predictable. As soon as I stepped through the doors, I felt the familiar thump of the bass, the steady, pulsing rhythm that seemed to vibrate through the floor and settle into my chest. I took in the dimly lit room, watching the crowd move and sway to the beat, bodies packed tightly together on the dance floor. The air had that distinctive smell, a mix of spilled drinks, cheap cologne, and the unmistakable energy of people looking to escape their lives just like I was. I made my way over to the bar, ordering a bourbon on the rocks, and took a moment to scan the room. Most of the people looked like they were just going through the motions, dressed up, moving to the music, but with vacant expressions, like they were trying to pretend they were somewhere else. There were a few women near the bar, balancing awkwardly in heels, their eyes scanning the crowd as if looking for someone interesting, but not putting much effort into it. To my left, a couple of guys had already started slurring their words, raising their drinks and trying to chat up anyone within earshot. They were predictable, already a few drinks in, getting louder with every round they ordered. I could tell they were trying to make an impression, but it felt desperate, like they were reaching for something they didn't even understand. There wasn't much to hold my interest there. I sipped my drink slowly, letting the burn of the bourbon settle in, and continued looking around, hoping for something to catch my eye. As the minutes passed, I began to wonder if I'd made a mistake coming here. The crowd seemed lifeless. The music lacked the energy I'd been hoping for, and I could feel my mind drifting back to all the things I'd been trying to escape. Work emails, upcoming deadlines, and the gnawing feeling that my life was just an endless cycle of stress and responsibility. I glanced at my phone, considering whether I should just call it a night and head home. Just as I was about to leave, I saw him. Standing near the far end of the bar, he looked like he didn't quite belong here, but in a way that made him stand out. His name was Alec, though I wouldn't learn that until later. At first glance, He was someone who drew attention without even trying. Young, probably around 20, with an easy confidence that was both captivating and slightly intimidating. His hair was a rich shade of dark brown, the kind that caught the low light in the club, giving it a soft glow that highlighted his features. His sharp green eyes scanned the room with an almost detached amusement, like he found everything around him faintly entertaining. He wore a simple black jacket over a fitted t-shirt, casual but purposeful, and his entire demeanor suggested someone who was both completely at ease and fully aware of himself. I couldn't help but notice the way people glanced at him, drawn in by that effortless aura. He wasn't trying to stand out, but he couldn't help it. After a moment, our eyes met. He didn't look away, and neither did I. There was something in his gaze, a quiet, knowing confidence that made me feel like he could see through all the layers I usually hid behind. I felt a strange pull, a curiosity that went beyond the usual attraction. Maybe it was his youth, or maybe it was the way he looked like he hadn't yet been worn down by the same responsibilities that weighed on me. Either way, I found myself walking over, my usual caution slipping away as I got closer. When I reached him, I tried to play it casual, opening with some light conversation. We talked about nothing in particular: music, the energy of the club, a few other random topics that were more about filling the space between us than actually getting to know each other. But as we spoke, I noticed the way he kept inching closer, his body language open and inviting. There was an ease about him that was almost disarming, a sense that he knew exactly what he was doing and was fully in control of the moment. As the night wore on, the tension between us grew. Every slight touch, every casual brush of his hand against mine seemed to crackle with a charged energy that neither of us could ignore. He knew what he was doing, and so did I, but we let it play out, both of us testing the waters, feeling out the boundaries of this connection. Eventually, Alec leaned in, his voice low and his tone casual, as he suggested we find somewhere quieter to talk. There was a flicker of mischief in his eyes, a playful challenge that made my heart skip a beat. I found myself nodding, the thought of returning to my regular life feeling distant and irrelevant in that moment. We made our way through the crowd and out of the club, stepping into the cool night air. Alex suggested a small, dimly lit lounge nearby, and we walked over, both of us wrapped up in the thrill of the night and the anticipation of whatever was coming next. The bar was quieter, with low music and soft lighting that gave everything a hazy, intimate feel. We settled into a corner booth, and I ordered another drink, letting myself relax as Alec leaned in close, his arm brushing against mine. The conversation faded into the background as the chemistry between us grew. Every glance, every touch felt like a spark, and I found myself completely wrapped up in him, in the way he moved, the way he looked at me. For the first time in ages, I felt alive, like the weight I usually carried had been lifted, even if only for a moment. The night slipped by in a blur, each passing second bringing us closer. By the time we stepped back out onto the street, I could feel my pulse racing, my mind hazy with anticipation. There was no need for words. We both knew what was happening, and neither of us was looking to stop it. I didn't think about tomorrow or the responsibilities waiting for me back at the office. All I cared about was the here and now, the rush of being with someone who made me feel free, even if just for one night. As we parted ways later, I felt a strange sense of peace, a calm that I hadn't felt in a long time. I didn't know what would come next, and in that moment, I didn't care. Alec had given me a taste of something different, something I hadn't realized I was missing. For once, I felt like I'd let go, like I'd finally stepped out of my routine and into something new. And as I made my way home, I knew that tonight wouldn't be the last time I sought out that freedom. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the blinds, casting soft patterns across my bedspread. I lay there, replaying the events of the previous night in my mind. Alec had unlocked something in me, a hunger that had been lying dormant, dulled by years of routine and responsibility. I hadn't felt this kind of excitement in longer than I could remember. It wasn't just the physical attraction, though that had been a powerful part of it. It was something deeper, a pull that felt strangely electric. As I stared up at the ceiling, still half in a daze, my phone buzzed beside me. I reached over, my heart picking up as I saw Alec's name flash on the screen. His message was simple, just a, "Hey, last night was fun, want to meet up again?" It was casual, playful, but it carried a spark that reignited everything I'd felt the night before. I quickly typed back, "Definitely. When are you free?" There was no hesitation in my response. I wanted to see him again, to explore whatever this connection was, and to see where it might lead. The reply came almost immediately. "How about tonight?" The anticipation hung over me all day, like a current running just beneath the surface. Work dragged on, each hour feeling longer than the last as I counted down to our planned meetup. By the time the day finally ended, I was more than ready to escape the confines of my routine and throw myself into something unpredictable and exciting. That evening, I arrived at the address Alec had sent, a boutique hotel nestled in a quiet corner of the city. The building was stylish, modern, with sleek glass doors and a lobby filled with soft lighting and minimalist decor. I checked in, then made my way up to the room. My heart raced as I entered, taking in the space. A large bed centered in the room, plush carpet underfoot, and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed a stunning view of the city lights. I barely had time to take it all in when my phone buzzed. "Alec. Downstairs. Room number?" I sent him the details, and within minutes there was a soft knock on the door. I opened it to find him standing there, looking as effortlessly attractive as he had the night before. His hair was slightly tousled, his green eyes alight with a mischievous glint that made my pulse quicken. He stepped inside, his gaze meeting mine as he closed the door behind him, and suddenly, the space between us felt charged, heavy with anticipation. Neither of us spoke at first. We didn't need to. There was an unspoken understanding, a silent agreement that words would only get in the way. Alec took a step closer, his hand reaching up to brush a stray strand of hair from my forehead. The touch was gentle, lingering, and it sent a thrill down my spine. His fingers trailed down, resting briefly on my shoulder before he leaned in, his breath warm against my skin. He closed the distance between us, his lips brushing softly against mine. It was a tentative kiss at first, almost hesitant, but then his hand moved to the back of my neck, pulling me in closer, and the kiss deepened. I felt his body press against mine, warm and solid, his arms wrapping around my waist as our kiss grew more intense. I couldn't hold back. I let myself get lost in the sensation, in the way his lips moved against mine, firm yet gentle, igniting every nerve. We broke apart for a brief moment, both of us breathless, but the look in his eyes told me he didn't want to stop. His hands roamed over my back, tracing soft patterns that sent a shiver through me. He moved closer, guiding me backward until the edge of the bed met the backs of my knees, and then he gently pushed me down. I lay back, looking up at him, my heart racing as he climbed onto the bed beside me. Alec leaned down, pressing soft kisses along my jawline, down my neck, his lips tracing a path that left my skin tingling. His hands found mine, our fingers intertwining as he continued, his touch growing bolder. Every kiss, every touch felt like it was carefully calculated to drive me wild, to pull me further under his spell. I could feel his breath against my neck, warm and teasing, as he whispered, "I've wanted this all day." His words sent a rush of heat through me, and I pulled him closer, my hands tangling in his hair as I brought his mouth back to mine. This time, the kiss was urgent, fueled by the pent-up anticipation that had been building all day. I felt his weight on top of me, his body pressing down in a way that made me feel both safe and exhilarated, like I could let go completely and surrender to the moment. As our kisses grew more fervent, he let his hands roam, exploring with a deliberate slowness that kept me on edge. His touch was light, teasing, skimming over my sides, down my arms, and back up again, until my whole body felt alive with sensation. His fingers traced over my chest, his touch firm and confident, as if he knew exactly what I needed. He moved with an unhurried precision, like he was savoring every second, and I found myself melting under his touch, completely caught up in the intensity of it all. Our breathing grew heavier, filling the quiet room, and he continued to explore, his hands sliding over my skin with a careful, practiced ease. It was as if he knew exactly how to keep me on the edge, giving just enough to make me want more. Every brush of his fingertips sent another jolt of pleasure through me, a steady buildup that felt both thrilling and overwhelming. Eventually, he pulled back slightly, looking down at me with that same mischievous glint in his eyes. His lips were slightly parted, his cheeks flushed, and there was an intensity in his gaze that made my heart pound. Without a word, he leaned in again, his hand slipping beneath my shirt, slowly pushing it up. I lifted my arms, letting him pull it off, and then he leaned down, pressing his lips to my bare chest, trailing kisses along my skin, his hands gripping my sides. We were both fully immersed in the moment, the world outside forgotten, as if we were the only two people that existed. His touch grew bolder, more insistent, and I found myself arching into him, my body reacting instinctively to his every move. I couldn't hold back. I wanted him, all of him, and the way he looked at me told me he felt the same. As the night continued, we moved together in a way that felt both natural and electric. Each touch, each kiss, deepened the connection between us, erasing any last trace of hesitation. There was no need for control, no need to hold back. With Alec, I felt free to be myself, to let go of all the walls I usually kept up and surrender completely to the moment. We lay there afterward, tangled together, the quiet hum of the city outside barely registering as we caught our breath. Alec rested his head on my chest, his arm draped across me, and I felt a calm settle over me, a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. I ran my fingers through his hair, feeling the soft strands beneath my fingertips, and I knew that this wasn't just some fleeting encounter. There was something more here, something that felt deeper than just a one-night fling. After a few minutes, he looked up at me, a soft smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "So?" he murmured, his voice a gentle tease. "Does this count as breaking your routine?" I chuckled, pulling him closer. "You could say that," I replied, brushing a soft kiss against his forehead. "It's been a long time since I felt this alive." He traced a lazy circle on my chest with his fingertip, his eyes thoughtful. "Maybe that's what you needed, a break from everything." I nodded, feeling a strange sense of gratitude for this unexpected connection. In the short time I'd known him, Alec had managed to break down barriers I didn't even know I had, showing me a side of myself I hadn't seen in years. For once, I didn't feel the weight of my job, the pressures of my responsibilities, or the endless cycle of stress that usually defined my days. I just felt free, open, and alive. As the sun began to rise, casting a warm glow through the window, I knew that things would eventually go back to normal, that the routines and responsibilities would return. But for now, in this quiet moment, I was content. Alec had given me a glimpse of something different, a reminder that there was more to life than just the grind. And as we lay there, wrapped up in each other, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I'd found something worth holding on to.